The Last Class, Part. This story is written by Emperor David and told to you on Midnight Vent, a place for people who like to meet their nightmares with eyes open. Tonight's topic is simple, a ghost story about a haunted school. If you're watching this alone, you might not be alone for long. My name is David, the voice behind Midnight Vent. I make horror videos, but I never truly believed in real ghosts. Until the night I entered Deggy Girls' School. It started as a dare. Everyone in my town knew about the old Deggy Girls' School, but nobody wanted to go near it after sunset. People said a girl named Priyanka had died there during class and never truly left. Some claimed they saw her face in the windows. Others swore they heard a classroom being taught at midnight, even though the building was locked and empty. I didn't believe any of it. Ghost stories are just stories. That's what I always said. So when my friends challenged me to spend one night inside the school and record everything for my channel, I laughed and agreed. I promised them a full, uncensored haunted school special on Midnight Vent the next day. They cheered, but none of them came with me. Dares are fun until someone actually accepts them. I reached the school just after the sun slipped behind the buildings. The sky was still faintly orange, but the school itself already looked like it belonged to the night. Broken windows, a rusted iron gate, tall grass swallowing the old playground. For a second, I just stood outside the gate, recording. "This is it," I whispered to the camera. "The famous Deggy Girls' School. They say one of the students died in here and still wants to attend class." My voice sounded smaller than usual, like the air itself was pressing it down. I pushed the gate. It groaned, like it hadn't moved in years, although I knew kids still sneaked in during the day. Inside the compound, the air felt heavier and colder. The playground was frozen in time, rusted swings, a cracked slide, and a huge banyan tree near the back boundary wall. That tree had its own legend. Students used to say they saw it glowing like fire at night, burning without flames, as if something inside it wanted to escape. I avoided looking at the tree for too long and turned my flashlight toward the main building. The front door was half open. The corridor beyond it was almost completely dark. Stepping inside felt like stepping into a closed box. The smell of dust and damp paper hit me first. Classroom doors lined both sides of the hall, each with fading labels: 1A, 1B, staff room, library. Cobwebs hung from the ceiling, like long, gray curtains. According to the stories, Priyanka's class had been on the ground floor, at the far end, Class 3B. That was where she'd collapsed, in the middle of a lesson, and never got back up. Some said her heart stopped. Some said she was pushed. Some said the teacher left and came back to find her writing on the board, even though she was already dead. I walked slowly down the hall, my flashlight beam shaking, just enough for me to notice. Every step echoed a second too late, as if someone else was walking just behind me, copying my rhythm. When I finally reached the door marked 3B, my hand hesitated on the handle. "Okay," I told the camera quietly, more to convince myself than the audience. "This is where it all happened." The door pushed open, with a long, slow creak that sounded almost rehearsed, like the building knew I was recording. My light swept across rows of broken desks and chairs. Old textbooks lay soggy and warped in the corners. At the front of the room stood a big blackboard, the kind teachers used to fill with chalk until there was a thin, white cloud in the air. Now it was almost clean. Almost. I set my phone on the nearest desk, camera facing the board. "People say the chalk here moves on its own," I said, forcing a grin. "So Priyanka, if you're still around and bored, this is your chance to go viral." Nothing happened at first. Just silence. The slight buzz of my phone. My own breathing. I moved closer to the board. Up close, I could see faint traces of old writing, half-erased equations, a few names, doodles of hearts and stars. Nothing unusual. I turned around, planning to leave and check the first floor. That's when I heard it. Tap. Tap. The sound of chalk touching slate. Once. Twice. Slowly. I stopped mid-step. The room was behind me. My phone was in front of the board, still recording. I was in the middle, not touching anything. Tap, tap, tap. My throat went dry. I turned back, very slowly. The board was no longer empty. In the center, in fresh, bright chalk, a single word had appeared. Stay. I hadn't heard anyone walk in. I hadn't felt anyone pass me. The word was sharp and new, the powder still clinging to the surface. I tried to laugh it off, though my voice trembled. "Good trick," I muttered. "Very live-stream friendly." A piece of chalk lay on the tray attached to the board. As I watched, it trembled slightly and rolled all the way to the edge by itself, dropping to the floor with a small, sharp click that echoed way too loudly in the empty classroom. That was enough. I grabbed my phone and backed out into the corridor. The temperature felt different now. Colder, heavy enough that every breath felt thick and slow. When I exhaled, I could actually see a faint white mist in front of my face, even though it wasn't winter. The tube lights on the ceiling had been dead for years, but as I stared up at them, one of them flickered to life for a split second, buzzing harshly, then went dark again. No electricity, no power, and yet it flickered. I should have left right then. The front door was still visible behind me. The gate was still open. The road outside was just a few meters away, but pride is a dangerous thing. I told myself this was exactly what I had come for. A real scare. A real story. Something my viewers would never forget. Leaving now felt like quitting just before the best part, so I went deeper. I walked past the staff room and the locked library, my flashlight revealing dust floating in the air like ash. Every now and then, I thought I heard a chair scrape, or a whisper, or the faint rustle of pages turning. But every time I turned, there was nothing, just empty rooms and shadows. Then I reached the staircase to the first floor. This staircase had a story too. Students said they heard footsteps running up and down it late at night, long after school hours. Sometimes the steps ended with a heavy thud, like someone falling. They said those sounds started only after Priyanka's death. I aimed my camera up at the stairs. "Okay," I said quietly. "If anyone's here, I'm listening." For a moment, there was nothing, just silence. Then, from somewhere above, I heard it, a single, hurried footstep. Then another. Then a rapid series, like someone sprinting down the stairs toward me. My flashlight beam shook as I tried to point it higher. The footsteps grew louder, closer, faster, but there was nobody there. They stopped just 2 steps above my face. If someone had been standing there, we would have been almost nose to nose. But the steps were empty, just dust. Dust that now held the shape of fresh footprints, clear and sharp, pointing directly at me. I stumbled backward, heart hammering so hard I felt dizzy. Something brushed past my ear, close enough that I felt cold air move my hair. A small, almost curious whisper slid into the side of my head. "Why did you come back, David?" I spun around. No one. Only the corridor, stretching away into the dark. I should have run for the exit. Instead, I ran toward the one place every story told me to avoid. At the far end of the corridor was the girls' washroom. That was where Priyanka's body had been found. Some said she slipped on spilled water and hit her head. Others insisted someone had locked her inside and left her there. The school never gave a straight answer. The washroom door was slightly open. I pushed it gently, and it swung inward with a tired creak. The smell hit me immediately. Damp, mold, and something metallic, like old rust or dried blood. Cracked tiles reflected my flashlight in broken patches. The mirrors above the sinks were fractured and cloudy. Some of the stalls had doors hanging off one hinge. Others were shut completely. Water dripped from somewhere in the dark, even though the building hadn't had running water in years. Each drop sounded too loud, too lonely. I stepped closer to the largest mirror. At first, I saw only myself, pale, sweating, eyes wider than I wanted to admit. Then something moved behind me. A small shape. A girl. In the reflection, she stood just behind my shoulder. Long hair, school uniform, head slightly tilted, like she was trying to understand what she was seeing. I turned around so quickly, I nearly slipped. There was no one behind me. The space was empty. My skin crawled as I turned back to the mirror. Now she was closer in the reflection, standing right behind my reflected shoulder, almost touching me. But the real space around me was still empty. Her eyes in the mirror were wrong, deep, dark, and vacant, like someone had taken a piece of the night and pressed it into her face. Her lips moved silently, forming words I couldn't hear. Then, on the glass itself, words began to appear. Letters, forming one by one, as if written from the inside with a fingertip made of fog. Class is not over. The overhead bulb, dead a second ago, burst into a wild flicker, strobing white and yellow around the room. My flashlight cut out completely. For one terrifying second, I stood in almost total darkness, lit only by the glitching bathroom light. In that half-light, something cold and small closed around my wrist. The grip was tight, like the hand belonged to a child, but it was strong enough to make my bones grind together. I opened my mouth to scream, and that's where part one ends. If you want to know whether I made it out of that washroom, what followed me into the corridor, and how a video I never uploaded went live on Midnight Vent by itself, you'll have to come back for part two. Question mark.